Hello everyone, welcome back to my video on project analysis. So today I will be touching on Tengah Garden Residences. I think this project is quite interesting. It is the first private condo launch in Tengah. So for the last few launches, we have been seeing there are many EC launches in Tengah. And this is the first one, the first private launch. So I think it has gathered so much interest that last week, because at the time when I shoot this video, the show flat is already in the preview week. So last week, when I go to the show flat, it was so crowded. People still have to queue to go in, right? So I think a lot of people, they are very excited about the launch of this project. This project, it is very interesting because it is next to Hong Kong MRT station, which is this one, right? You can see that there's water body, right? So all this water body, it is actually created, man-made created, and is surrounding Tengah Garden Residences. And there are some commercial shops around here at level 1. I wouldn't say it's a shopping mall, but it's more like a community plaza, right? So it will have some shops, and the commercial space is about 5,000 square meter, which is something that is not very big also, but not bad. It will be able to serve the needs of the people who is living there in the future. So some disclaimer, I will not touch on this, it's quite standard, right? Today I'll be touching on some, of course, the project information. Then after that, we will be looking at some common challenges today, right? I think a lot of people, they know that two-bedder is very hard to exit in today's market. So later on, we'll be looking at Tengah Garden Residences. Is the two-bedder really very hard to exit? And also we will looking at some case study, and we'll look at, if let's say today you are considering like a two-bedder in Tengah Garden Residences, what is the future demand? Who is going to buy from you? Of course, when we buy something, we always have to plan with an exit in mind. So how long are we going to hold? If let's say you are buying for investment, so we will look at the time your exits. Then of course, right now, from now on, every video we will be including this part, which is called identify the sweet spot for every project. So this time around, we'll be looking at Tengah Garden and where is the sweet spot to enter with the right USP, yet you are not buying too expensive. And of course, the last one, we'll be looking at the layout analysis. This is my QR code. If let's say, if you want to connect with me at this point of time, if you have seen the show flat and you have some burning question, just take your phone and scan the QR code and you can connect directly with me on WhatsApp. So let's move on. So Tengah Garden is located right next to Hong Kong MRT station. This is the Jurong Region Line. They are also next to the future Tengah Central General Hospital. So definitely there will be some units that is facing the hospital view, right? So some people, they say that, wow, facing hospital, I don't know whether is it good or is it not good. But of course, this one is very subjective. I leave it to you. But of course, you can see that the map wise, right? The water body is right here. Although it's not drawn out on the map, but it will be here. This is man-made. So what I'm seeing is that the developer, they have actually placed some of the unit here. You will definitely have some units that will have a waterfront facing. And I see that the developer actually very cleverly placed those of the bigger units, that has a very good view. So definitely, when we talk about develop pricing strategy, one of the strategy is unit type strategy, which I can clearly see that the developer, very clearly, they might play this strategy where they will load the higher PSF on the bigger unit type. So if I say at this point of time, you don't know what I'm talking about, later on I will explain in detail. So I think today Tengah, if you see, for the last few launches, we have a lot of those EC launches like Lumina Grand, Kompang Grand already TOP, and then you have Atura and all that, right? So we have many ECs in Tengah, and I think this place is really getting transformed. And right now we are seeing that a lot of HDB, they have already started to move into Tengah, and a lot are still building, right? So in the next few years, definitely we will have a very high demand in the whole Tengah area, because that is where all the upgraders, they are there. So if let's say you are watching this video and then you are thinking about whether should I get a two-bedder or not, so this is where you need to watch my analysis, where I will be explaining holding on to a two-bedder in Tengah Garden Residences, will it be easy for you to exit in the future? So later we will be taking a look at it. Some project info. So Tengah Garden total 863 units, and you can see that they have some commercial shop at first story. It is not a proper shopping mall like Le Quest, and Pasir Ris 8. I would say that, the whole commercial space, if I'm not wrong, it should be about 5,000 square meter. So 5,000 square meter is not very big. They have a few shops there. So I think it is actually good enough to serve some of the residents who are living, in Tengah Garden and also the nearby HDB. So some of the unit mix, they have 1-bedder all the way to 4-bedder, quite standard. This project do not have a 5-bedder. So if let's say you're looking at a 5-bedder, you might need to look at other projects. So you can see that the majority, right, are 2-bedder and 3-bedder. 2, 3, 4 contributed a lot. 1-bedder, there are only 6 units, which is very little. Because I think that the developer, when they do this planning, they foresee that a lot of buyers in this area, they are mainly people who will be buying for own stay, and minimally a 2-bedder. I think that the developer plan this way, it makes a lot of sense. So the next one, we will take a look at the site plan. So 863 units is a very big development, not bad, very decent size. So you can actually see that it has a full condo facility. The main entrance is actually via the Tengah Garden Avenue. You will come in here to the guardhouse and all that. So you can actually see that they have one side gate here. So this is a link bridge to the Hongkar MRT station, and this is probably the only side gate. And also here is the commercial plaza. It's right below. So here are all the waterfront body. So definitely from what I see is that you have 3 different facing. This part is facing the hospital view, and then the inward are mostly pool view. And also you have the other type is the waterfront facing. So later on I'll be touching on what is the USP and where is the sweet spot of this project. So you must stay tuned to the part. So the next one. So I think today a lot of people they have been saying that the very common challenges today is if I buy a 2-bedder, it is very hard for me to exit in today's market. I wouldn't deny that today any 2-bedder I can go ask around, it is not easy to sell. Definitely not easy. But you must understand, right, why is it not easy to sell? So usually, when you have a lot of competition around you, buyer they will get more choices. So when you get more choices, it will become harder to sell. But what if the surrounding, you don't have a lot of choices, then that is where I feel that things get a lot easier, because the supply is already controlled and it's already limited. So this is a very common challenges that we face today, and right now we are going to look at it. So if I use another area called Dairy Farm, so everybody know that Dairy Farm area today, they have a lot of new launches there, right? So they have Nara Residences, they have Botany, Just TOP. So if I pull out the whole Dairy Farm area, I'm looking at all the resale condo, right? Interestingly, I have about 39% of the 2-bedder in the whole area. So that means 39%, almost 40% of 2-bedder there, I would say is quite a lot. So how about Tengah area? So of course, if you know that Tengah area, for the last few launches, they are all ECs. And Tengah Garden Residences is the only private condo first launch in the whole area. So for the last few launches, right, we are seeing that only Koppen Grand EC, just TOP recently, they only have 11 units of 2-bedder. The rest like Lumina Grand, Artura, Novo Place, Octo Place, they do not have a 2-bedder. So it's all starting from a 3-bedder. So you can actually see that for Tengah Garden Residences, they have about 337 units of 2-bedder. So you can see that actually the whole area, right, next time for upgraders who are looking at a 2-bedroom, they only stands about 10% of 2-bedder in the whole area. So 10%, honestly, I feel that is not too high. It is pretty low compared to Dairy Farm is 39%. So it's about 3 times lesser than Dairy Farm. So I think that I think for a lot of buyers, if let's say they are holding on to a 2-bedder in Tengah area today, it should be relatively easy to find a buyer in the future. So right now, if you are seeing a very common problem in the market is that for those who are holding on to a 2-bedder, it is very hard to exit. Very often, it takes very long to sell because of nearby competition. If let's say a 2-bedder and there's no competition around the area, by right, it should be very easy to exit, right? So that is why we go and actually do up a case study to see whether is it really true, is it really easy to exit. So that's why I go and do a case study on River House. Let's take a look at River House. So River House is a private condo, launched in 2016. So you can see that they have about 17 units of 1-bedder. So 17 units of 1-bedder, but surrounding River House, they are all mainly ECs and they don't have a 1-bedder. So the key question is that if let's say there's no competition, is it really profitable? So if you look at River House, right, they are 1-bedder. From what I can see is that they hold probably about 4 years. This hold about 4 years. They bought in 2012, so in 2016, 4 years, they made about 130,000. And some of them hold even longer, right? They hold about 8 years. They made about 142,000, right? So of course, the profit is not something to be, to actually shout about because it's not a lot. But I think for a 1-bedder of this size, 441 square feet, to be able to sell at this kind of profit, and honestly, it's not, it is not difficult to sell. And from what I see on River House is that over the years, they do not have anyone lose money when they're holding on to a 1-bedder. So I think this proves a very strong point. If let's say, be it the unit type they are holding, can be a 1-bedder, can be a 2-bedder. If let's say surrounding, there is not much competition, usually it will make the unit very easy to exit in the future. So of course, River House is located in Punggol. So Punggol is also an area that is full of HDB upgraders. You have a lot of buyers buying for own stay. But you can actually see that even holding on to a 1-bedder in Punggol, it is still able to sell. So basically, right, this one, I feel that it is a very strong case study to actually relate back to Tengah Garden Residences, where Today, they are in a very similar situation where in Tengah Garden Residences, there are 2-bedder surrounding it. They don't even have a competition. So the next one is that, if let's say today, if you hold a 2-bedder in Tengah Garden Residences, how is the future demand going to be like? Who is going to buy from you? Is there really a demand? Even though I don't have competition, but what if I have no demand also? So this is something that is very worrying. So that's why we must be mindful, to look at what is the future 2-bedder demand in Tengah Garden Residences. Who is going to buy from you? So of course, we know that in the whole Tengah area, it is mainly HDB. So you will have a lot of upgraders. And of course, from what I see is that a lot of HDB upgraders, when they upgrade to condo, they will tend to prefer to upgrade to condo with the same number of bedroom that they have in HDB. So let's say, example, if we have a 3-room HDB flat upgraders, currently which they have a 2-bedroom, when they upgrade to condo, of course, if they have the budget, they will go for a 3-bedder. If not, minimally, they still wish to have a 2-bedroom. So that's why if I go and look at all the HDB supply in the whole of Tengah, honestly, I'm quite shocked. There is really quite a lot. Total is 20,880 units of HDB supply in Punggol. And the earliest MOP is 2028. Okay, so for Tengah Garden, they will TOP around 2029, 2030. So just in time where some of these buyers, they can do something in Tengah already. They can buy something. So I think this is something that, at a point when Tengah Garden TOP, you already have a pool of ready buyer available in the market. So the key thing is that, if you have 20,000 of HDB supply in the whole area, but of course not everybody will sell, right? Not every 3-room flat will sell. So what is the selling rate? So what is the percentage? I actually did some further study to see what is the resale demand for the HDB 3-room flat in District 23. So today we can see that actually in the whole of District 23, total including 3-room, 4-room, 5-room. In total, we have about 2,900 transactions in the past 1 year. Out of these 2,900 transactions, 522 are 3-room flat. This brings me to about 18% of the 3-room flat will actually sell in D23. So later on, we will actually use this ratio to actually work out what is the absorption rate in Tengah. Is it easy to absorb just by the Tengah estate itself? So if you see the demand on Tengah Garden Residences for 2-bedder, if I look at the whole Tengah area, in the whole Tengah area, total HDB I have, so starting from 2028, 2029, 2030, almost every year I'll have a cluster that will MOP. So that means every year I will have a ready buyer one in Tengah area. So out of all this supply in Tengah, total I have about 2,700 units of 3-room flat in Tengah. So of course for Tengah Garden, they only have 337 units of 2-bedder, which means that, right, the absorption rate, I only need about 12%. 12% of 2,752 to finish buying all these 337 units from the seller. So of course, not everybody who holds a 2-bedder today, they will sell in just 4 years' time. So some of them, they are still buying for own stay. But what I'm trying to say is that 12%, is it a ratio that is easily manageable? So in my personal opinion, I feel that the 12%, it can be easily absorbed by the Tengah estate itself, because they have 2,700 units and only 12% of it. 12% can finish absorbing 337 already. So that's why it is not a lot. So of course, we haven't looked at the buyers from other estates in Choa Chu Kang, in Bukit Panjang, and all over the area. So I think, based on the demand itself, I can see that it has a very, very strong demand there that can easily absorb just the 337 units in Tengah Garden. So the key thing is that if let's say today you are buying, be it a 2-bedder or if not a 3-bedder, if let's say you are buying for investment, so you must be thinking that, when should you be exiting? Should you exit after Tengah Garden just TOP in 2029 or 2030? Or should you time your exit after that? So the key thing is that when you want to time the exit, right, you also don't want to be selling your unit when the EC owners, they just reach MOP and they are also selling. So suddenly the whole market will have a lot of supply. So this is something that I feel that, you may want to avoid. So that is where timing your exit is actually very crucial. So if let's say Tengah Garden Residences, if they TOP in 2029, then I think, that is the perfect time. If you really want to exit at TOP and you don't have plans to hold it longer than that, then I think that one is a perfect time to sell before Koppang Grand EC, the resale supply hits the market in 2030. If you don't plan to sell, then when is the next window for you to exit? I will say after 2031. You may want to consider maybe 2032 and 2033, because these 2 years, they don't have any new EC MOP. So that is where, you may want to consider 2032 or 2033 to sell your unit. So that is where I see that, these are the few window of exit that you may want to consider. If let's say you are buying for own stay, the next window is to probably to avoid auto place is after auto place MOP. So maybe 2036 onwards. So you can see that the holding horizon, it can be just TOP at this point. You may want to let go already. If not, it may be 2 to 3 years after TOP where you can let go at this window. If not, it will be about 7 years after TOP. So in total, we are looking at, actually there are 3 exit points if you really want to exit. So this is something to take note also. So timing your exit is very important. If let's say you are a pure investor that you just want to flip the unit after 4 years, then of course, you may want to exit using the first exit point, if not the second exit point. So the next thing we are going to look at it is where are the sweet spot and what is the developer pricing strategy. So I have actually explained what is the developer pricing strategy in my previous video. So if let's say you have missed it, maybe you want to watch the other video on Velabe where I actually touch in detail on what do I mean by the 3 different types of strategy. So the 3 different types of strategy is price per floor jump. So what is price per floor jump in a nutshell is that if let's say, because Tengah Garden, I think the highest floor it should be about 16 story, the lowest start from level 2. So of course for every floor jump it will have a increment by the developer, can be 3k. So when it jump to a certain floor where maybe it will clear the train track or maybe you have a waterfront view, the jump will be a lot more. So this is a very common strategy adopted by most developers. So this is something that you need to bear in mind, that if let's say the developer, for sure Tengah Garden, I think they will definitely adopt this price per floor jump strategy. It's just that how much they will load only. In my personal opinion, I don't think they will load a lot. They will probably just be some marginal load on some of the floor. Then for view jump we talk about there are 3 different views in Tengah Garden residences. You have the hospital view, you have the train station view, you have the waterfront view. Based on these 3 views, definitely I can say that the developer, they will actually put a lot of view jump on the waterfront facing, because that is where a lot of buyers today they just want to buy something that has a very good view, especially for own stay. If let's say you are already buying for investment, then this is something that you may not want to overpay the developer and to buy into a unit that is at a higher price, because this will make your exit even harder next time. Then the last one is unit type. Unit type, traditionally you have 1 bedder to 4 bedder. Usually the 1 bedder will have a higher per square foot, the 4 bedder will have a lower per square foot due to the size. But nowadays we are seeing that a lot of developers, they swap to become the 1 bedder will have a lower per square foot, the 4 bedder, the bigger unit type, will have a higher per square foot. So what we are seeing, we have seen in many launches like Zion Grand and all that, the developer actually load a lower per square foot on the smaller bedroom type. So which I think that this is actually very smart by the developer, because they know that the smaller bedroom type, it is harder to absorb by the market. So that's why they make it very attractive for people to go in. But the bigger unit type like 3 bedder and 4 bedder, people usually buy for own stay. So that is where they will load their margin there. So this is something to take note also. So the developer may adopt either one of these strategy, or they may adopt 2 out of 3 strategy. So based on my opinion, I feel that Tengah Garden, they will adopt unit type, they will adopt view jump. Price per floor jump, I feel there will be, but I don't think the jump will be that crazy. So where are the sweet spot? So if you look at where are the sweet spot in Tengah Garden residences, so what do I mean by sweet spot? Sweet spot is to, the best is if we can buy into something that is of the USP of the project, yet we can buy cheap. So this is the sweet spot, meaning to say it is important to buy into USP because this is why the future buyers will choose this project. And yet today, if let's say we are holding on to the USP where the future buyers will like, and yet we buying cheap, then that is where a lot of gains to be made in the future. The worst thing that we want to avoid is to buy something with no USP and yet we buy expensive. This is the thing that we want to avoid. So if you look at Tengah Garden residences, where are the USP? So I feel that for Tengah Garden residences, the USP is convenience. People buy into Tengah Garden because it is next to a train station. So of course, if you see that, the waterfront block and also here, people need to walk a little bit to the side gate. So the side gate is here. So of course, buying something that is of a waterfront body, definitely the developer, I feel that they will load a lot of premium here because they have a very good view. So I think this sector, it will be the most expensive. So this sector is what I call what? You buy into USP and you buy expensive. So this is not the sweet spot. The sweet spot is buy into something USP, but yet we don't buy too expensive. There is another sector, I think the second most expensive one might be the hospital view. These 3 blocks, block 13, 15 and 17. These blocks are what? You buy into the USP, but you also have a very good unblocked view also, because of course in front it faces the hospital, right? Of course you don't buy something that is not too expensive. So of course, where is the cheapest? I feel that the sweet spot is here, this part. Block 19 and block 21, where you are buying to a USP because you are closest to the side gate. You are also in between, not too far to the community plaza. So you are in between. Yet, I don't think the developer will load a lot for the internal facing. This one might be in terms of price, it might be cheap. So you are buying to the USP and you are buying cheap. So I think that the sweet spot is here, block 19 and block 21. So of course, this is based on my own guessing. We still need to see what is a price list on the actual day, where did the developer load in terms of their view premium. If let's say on that day, if let's say hospital facing, just slightly more than the internal pool view facing, then I think it makes a lot of sense to go for the hospital facing because you are still buying to the USP. But what if the hospital facing, the developer load a lot? Then I think this is the situation that we really want to avoid, where we buy into no USP. Because why? Hospital facing I think is very subjective. Some people mind, some people don't mind. So of course, you are buying into something that is no USP and you are buying expensive. So this is a situation that we really want to avoid when we want to go into a unit. So the next thing we are going to go into layout analysis. So we start off with one bedder first. So one bedder, there are only 6 units only, not a lot. So for the one bedder layout, very standard. They don't have a 1+ study. It's only 484 square feet, if not a 517 square feet. The main difference really lies with the living room, where they have a slightly bigger kitchen and also a slightly bigger living room. So of course, my preferred unit will be the smaller one, 484 square feet. The next one will be a 2-bedder. So for 2-bedder, they will have a lot more. So for 2-bed, 1 bath, they only have 1 type, which this style of layout I think is quite nice that the developer is giving an enclosed kitchen. So this is the dumbbell layout, which is very common. You must have seen in a lot of projects. Pretty standard. For 2-bed, 2-bath, 2-bed, 2-bath, they have many types, but I think more or less the variation is actually not much difference. So the 2-bed, 2-bath, of course, they have an enclosed kitchen also and a dumbbell layout. Of course, both of the bathroom don't have window lah, which is a very common layout that we see in many projects, including Parktown, including Pinery. Another 2-bedder is 667 and 753 square feet, which is a 2+ study. So the difference, you can see that the 667 and 657 square feet, honestly, the layout, I don't see any difference. You just have maybe a bigger living space. Of course, I don't have the dimension here, I cannot compare, but definitely from the layout, I'm seeing that the extra space goes to the living room and maybe some part of the kitchen. 2+ study, you come in here, very standard. They also have a study area here. Maybe this area, it can fit a single bed, but of course, we must still see the dimension to see whether is it able to fit a single bed here. Also very standard. So our most preferred unit will be the 2+ study. Why is it a 2+ study? Because Tengah area, they are mostly HDB upgraders. So for the 3-room flat buyers, definitely I feel that we will face some buyers who are still buying for own stay. So nowadays, I know that there are still a lot of people, they still work from home. So I think having an extra study space will actually help them to make their choice easier when they want to upgrade to a 2-bedder. So this will be my most preferred choice. For the 3-bedder compact, they have many different types. Okay, so for the 3-bedder compact, it comes with 4 different types. So only type 3A, which is the smallest one, 797 square feet, the kitchen does not have a window. The rest of the 3-bedroom compact, it comes with a window. And of course, that is very nice, which is the 3D. So 3D is 904 square feet. 904 square feet, you can actually see that the developer actually include a storeroom. Okay, so this one can be the wall, you can see that the wall can be removed. So this can be a flexi room where you can use it as a study, you can use it as a storeroom, you can use it as a helper room. So of course, you can guess, we buy into a HDB upgrader area, having a storeroom is very important. So my preferred choice will be a 3D 904 square feet because I think that the flexi room, it will be very helpful in the future. So for 3-bedroom premium, it comes with a yard and a storeroom. They have many different types of 3-bedroom premium. So let's look at the first 4 types first. 969 square feet is the smallest, then 980, 990, and 1012. So from what I see from these 4 layout, I feel that something that's very unique is the kitchen. So you can actually see that for 3F and 3G, the 980 and 990 square feet, the kitchen is in a U-shaped kind of kitchen, which is not very common. We do see in the older type of condos, but the newer type of condos, I think this is the first time that I'm seeing it. So I feel that this type of U-shaped kitchen, it actually saves the space a lot. It's a very clever use of space. And I think that the 1012, the kitchen is actually much bigger compared to the rest. Then for the other 3 more type of layout will be 1012, 1023 and 1033. So the biggest one is 1033 square feet. So personally, I feel that my most preferred choice will be the 1033 square feet because I feel that I still prefer the more traditional layout. And also you look at the master bedroom, it is also much bigger, so you have a walk-in wardrobe. The other type of 3-bedder they also have. So from what I'm seeing is that the 3-bedder, most of the 3-bedder layout in Tengah Garden, they are more or less very similar with some very slight difference only. So I think most buyers, they do not have complaint for the layout because all the layout are very similar. But I think it's really down to the facing, which facing are you going to get, and are you going to get something that is very close to the side gate, or are you going to get something that has a waterfront living? Of course, the pricing will be very different. So I think that one will be more of a decision point than having which layout that you need to choose. Next, we will move to a 4-bedder. So 4-bedder, they also have many different types. The smallest is 1130. So 1130 and 1141 square feet, you can actually see that what the developer is actually giving is the kitchen is reasonably big, same as 3-bedder. They have a yard, they have a storeroom. So the design is very close to a 3-bedder, but of course with one additional bedroom. So the other type of 4-bedder premium, you can see that is 1259 square feet, 1249 square feet, and 1249 square feet. So the extra space really go to the living room and also the master bedroom, because the master bedroom I can see that the developer is actually very thoughtful where they are designing the master bedroom to be very big, because I think nowadays a lot of buyers, they are complaining that wow, the new launches nowadays, the master bedroom is very small, smaller than the older condo last time. So you can see that for the master bedroom, they actually have a dedicated walk-in wardrobe, so which makes the whole space looks a lot bigger already. So my most preferred type of unit is the 4-bedroom premium 1249 square feet, okay, because I feel that a lot of buyers in this area having a bigger space, most people they will not complain. And also their master bedroom, it is also bigger. So of course, even their 4-bedroom, you can actually tell that the main difference between every type of layout is very marginal. It is also really depends on what are the type of facing that you really want. I think that one is more important. So we have come to the end of the analysis. So at this point of time, if you really want to connect with me on Tengah Garden Residences, feel free to take your phone to scan the QR code to WhatsApp me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.